One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. Tulsa Athletic Director Derrick Gragg is on the line with us today for One Question. And Derrick, for those who may not remember or don't know within the industry, you actually completed and released a book last year titled 40 Days of Direction, Life Lessons from the Talented 10. First off, how in the world does an AD have time to also write a book?
Well, that's a great question. Actually, an AD doesn't have time to write a book. And, added to that, I have a 2-year-old, what we call a surprise daughter, because I have 4 children, and she is the youngest one by 13 years. And so I was actually in between dealing with the newborn and all that comes along with doing that after not having a newborn for, 13, 14 years. I honestly was writing this book. It took me a long time, as you can imagine. So I started on it about 5 years ago. And the only time I had to really work on it was trying to get up ahead of the family, maybe 4 a.m., 3 a.m. sometimes, work a couple of hours on it a day, and then put it down and then get to my day job. So it's just one of those things, though. They say that everybody has 24 hours in a day, and if you want to get something done, you'll get it done. So my wife really kept on me, and I credit her because actually she's working on a book that she's going to release really soon, a children's book. But always have loved writing and journaling and those types of things. But like you just mentioned, there's not a lot of time. So that's why it took me so long to get it done. And finally, I got to about 30 chapters, and I said, I think I'm going to stop. I'm going to call it 30 days of direction rather than 40 days. And then really it hit me that I should write a chapter. The way I got to the 40 days was I wrote a chapter about each one of the guys I was closest to as a Vanderbilt student athlete who are still my lifelong friends, and I incorporated a life lesson into their own story. So that's how I finished it. And so it's a great tribute. Not only is it a great book for young students and student athletes coming up who are looking for advice, looking for counsel, trying to better themselves, but it's also a great tribute to the men that I played football with at Vanderbilt.
And let's talk about some of those lessons within the book. What would you want an aspiring student athlete or even a student athlete in your portfolio now, if they read the book, what would you want them to walk away with understanding is important as they move forward?
Well, I'll mention several of the chapters, but I think the most important one is the first one that in the book is called You Belong. And, it's just there's so many negative things being said about student athletes sometimes. And, you're only here on campus because you can play ball. You don't really belong here, those types of things. And so the first thing I want them to know is that they have a purpose on a campus. Their first purpose is to finish school, to graduate, and don't let anyone, basically exclude them from that part of the educational system. So it's a motivational piece. I have other chapters. One's called NFL Not for Long, NBA No Boys Allowed. And everybody knows what that's about. One's Remember She's Someone's Daughter, about dealing with young ladies and how you should always treat them with respect because, sometimes you just don't hear some of these things. And myself, I grew up without my biological father in the house. So a lot of these things are things that I wish that I could go back and tell myself when I was 18 years old. And also part of it is that a lot of it is things that I'm telling my own teenage sons. I have one son, Derrick Gragg, who's on our football team here. He's 19. He's a sophomore in the classroom. He's a redshirt freshman wide receiver. So a lot of these things, and then my other son's 15. And so, he's in high school. So I'm telling them a lot of these things day by day by day. Another chapter is called The Dumb Jock Must Be Destroyed. Stay true to yourself. Another one's Appreciate Good Friends. You can't replace them because we lost one of our good friends out of those 10 when we were 23 years old, like 23 years ago. So, it covers the gamut on, things that I wish that someone had told me back when I was in school.
That leads me into the question, do you think athletic directors who were student athletes like you were at Vanderbilt in football, but any athletic director who played collegiate sports, are they predisposed to having an edge in connecting with student athletes today over those who never played collegiately?
Well, I wouldn't say that that it's a must that you play college sports to connect with the student athletes. However, I do find that it's given me an instant legitimacy and credibility with the student athletes. And I've been at 4 or 5 other institutions, including Michigan, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, of course, where I started, Missouri, Eastern Michigan. And I think when I do presentations, I'm pretty purposeful about, sometimes I'll put a photo of myself in it, and it'll be a shot of me. The one I like to use the most is what was my last game against the University of Tennessee. We were at Tennessee, and, it's rocking and rolling, 100,000 people there. And there's an action shot of me that I show. So it shows these student athletes that I've basically been there and done that. I walked in their shoes. I did play. I played on the highest level with obviously one of the toughest. The SEC's always been one of the toughest football conferences in America since it started. So I do think that there's some credibility there, because these student athletes like to connect with people who understand their time commitments, who understand the academic challenges. And I can speak to that because I ended up all academic, all SEC after some time. However, I really struggled while I was a student athlete, in particular in the first couple of years. So, although I have a doctorate now, I'm able to at least tell them about my struggles academically, what I had to do time-wise, what I had to do with study table, all the extra work we had to put in academically to make it in that environment. So I think there are some advantages to having done the things that those student athletes are trying to do right now.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.